If you release a PC game that people really take into their hearts, that game lives forever. So here are 8 old games that look better than ever thanks to the magic of modding. There are more or less 2 reasons to play old PC games. One is for that heady hit of digital yesteryear, like stepping back into your childhood home after many years, except there are Greater Basilisks everywhere. Gaming nostalgia's twin, though, is taking an old game and seeing how much you can modernize it. It's less about conjuring up half-forgotten memories and more about embracing the PC's unique capacity for fiddling with INI files until you've basically got a homebrewed sequel. Modding communities spring up around beloved games like zebras and things around a Serengeti watering hole. Only instead of drinking the source code, they give a title new life, expanding the story, the mechanics, and more often than not, the graphical features. And that's what we're looking at in this video, 8 old-timey games that have aged better than Paul Rudd. Before we trace the rays, load up the ENBs, and download all the 4K texture packs, remember to subscribe to Logitech G for more like this. Hit the bell to be alerted whenever we upload something, and ready your trigger finger on the like button if we inspire you to renovate an old classic.
So wake up, Mr. Freeman. Wake up and smell the ashes.
Gosh, do you remember the days when all you did in GTA games was run around doing bad things for shouty people? Before San Andreas, there was no getting Claude buff or sorting his hair out or eating burgers or making sure his wardrobe was comprised of the right gang colors, or any of the things Rockstar decided to revolutionize open games with. With San Andreas, we got not just a hard-hitting story of young men in the projects with an eye on the criminal big time, but also a newfound ownership of our protagonist. Everyone's CJ was just a little bit different. It's fondly remembered then, despite that train mission, so inevitably a modding scene's grown around the old code and kept it looking sharp.
All we had to do was follow the damn train, CJ!
What you're looking at right now is Jefferson Retextured and ENB, a mod that drags CJ and the gang out of the PS2 era murk and into somewhere all dewy and impossibly reflective. The player models still hark back to a time when much lower poly counts were a necessity, but in this modernized environment they look like a stylistic touch. It might not look next gen, but it's definitely stepped out of 2004.
Ball is turf, you dogs ready?
Yeah, for sure, I'm ready.
Carl, just concentrate on the driving and we'll take care of the shooting.
Listen to the man, fool, and try not to park us up a tree or something.
Next up is quintessential 90s shooter Quake II. And thanks to Nvidia's recent RTX release, its shooter now possesses a curious dichotomy. It's easily old enough to drink in the States, and actually should be thinking about its 401k already, and at the same time, it's literally a next-gen shooter with all the ray tracing trimmings. Despite ray tracing previously being the preserve of movie effects houses who'd leave their supercomputers to render a single frame over days at a time, here it is happening all over the floor in a game from 1997, in real time. What we especially love about this one is how little it's changed in so many ways. The Strogg still look like claymation nightmares, it's browner than a sepia filter turned up to max, and like San Andreas, the poly count's still way lower than we used to. But after Devil Daggers, Dusk, and the rest made the Quake aesthetic officially retro chic, it works perfectly with ray tracing touches. If, like us, the fact that Skyrim is now an old game kind of blindsided you, that's really a testament to its vast and talented modding community. Like a team of diligent cosmetic surgeons, they've been nipping and tucking at Bethesda's RPG from the very second it arrived on November 11th, 2011, and continue to do so a decade later.
It's good to see another merry soul enjoying this fine day.
The result is a game that might end up looking better than Elder Scrolls 6. 4K textures everywhere you look, photorealistic flora and fauna, tasteful ENBs and reshades that do away with the original game's flat lighting, character models who finally show more variety than the population of ruddy-faced Gerard Depardieu's we met in 2011.
Are you a soldier? One day, I'm going to be a soldier.
Skyrim's geography is worth savouring. And using a whole slew of mods from the Nexus, you can modernize that space so dramatically that it's like playing a remake. For 7 years, modders have been working away at an amateur HD remake of Resi 4. In that time, of course, Capcom itself has got into the remaster game and worked through the Resi back catalogue from the start, and it's now 3 games deep. There's something of a race against time though for the team who started this mod as a hobby. How long do they have to fine-tune their creation before Capcom brings a big money remake of its own to the market? That's not for us to worry about though. Instead, we can just stroll around, at least in the bits where we're not running, sweat-drenched and blood-soaked, through the Spanish countryside and admire the views. Some of the HD textures here are based on the original files, but a whole lot of them involved following the original developers' footsteps around the world and photographing castle walls and hotel lobbies to get their own version of the source material. All so we could do this in HD.
Hunnigan, I have some bad news. I've confirmed the body of an officer. Something's happened to the people here.
Leon, you need to get out of there.
Half-Life 2 is a pretty evergreen game in the first place. Something about Valve's Source engine. The way it melds nearly photorealistic environments with just slightly stylized character models kept it on pace with newer releases for way longer than it had any business doing. But then Cinematic Mod came along.
Well, end of the line.
Lighting every scene as if Tony Scott, Michael Bay and Chris Nolan got together, argued for hours about how to shoot it, and then agreed to do everyone's ideas all at once.
It's me, Gordon, Barney from Black Mesa. Hey, sorry for the scare, I had to put on a show for the cameras.
The result is a new spin on the old stalwart, which doesn't rely on simply crisper textures or applying newer rendering techniques like some of the other mods in this video, but casts the original environments in a new light, figuratively and literally. There seem to be stylized new light sources everywhere, and far from distorting the original creative vision, they actually bring you in a bit closer to the events of Dr. Freeman's escape from, and eventual takedown of, City 17.
Whoa, what a drop. After you, Gordon.
Next, it's time for another ray tracing update, and on paper, Minecraft RTX Windows 10 edition is similar to Quake II's modernization. I mean, there's ray tracing now. Things look shinier, water becomes so beautiful you want to cry, licking at fire feels like hearing the Beatles for the first time. Yada yada, you know the drill. But there's something a bit more to consider about Minecraft swathed in next-gen finery. I know 2009 seems like a long time ago now, a time of Farmville and Paul Blart Mall Cop, but we did have games with rounded edges. So what we've got now then is an exercise in minimalist world building realized in photorealistic lighting. It shows us that just because game graphics are inching closer to achieving reality, creators don't necessarily have to strive for it. We can take bold artistic directions and then let that render display that totally different physical reality in a way that instinctively still feels, well, real. It's a familiar story. Star Wars thing happens, everyone loves it. Years later, newer version of Star Wars thing happens, people are divided. That's life for such a revered pop culture phenomenon though, isn't it? If people take it into their hearts deeply enough, any change or modernization will feel like an affront. You live by the lightsaber, you die by the lightsaber. All of which is to say, there's still a camp that prefers to play the older Star Wars Battlefront games from the early 2000s, even though there are newer ones now that look eye-searingly gorgeous. So what's a fan to do? Just put up with Star Wars Battlefront 2's PS2 era visuals? Ha! Not in PC gaming land. With some degree of inevitability, a team of wildly talented modders has created Star Wars Battlefront 2 Remaster, a collection of visual and gameplay improvements which, alright, doesn't give EA's latest games a run for their money in terms of graphics, but certainly spruces the far, far away galaxy up a fair bit. Best of all, it's an all-in-one install, so if like us you're still recuperating from installing the 300 Skyrim mods it took to achieve precisely the look you wanted, you'll consider that a big draw.
Nothing can stop the Empire.
Space, depending on how you look at it, is either the easiest or the hardest thing to render in-game. On one hand, it's mostly featureless black skybox, and on the other, it's an incomprehensible plane that holds every molecule in existence within its infinite draw distance. Kerbal's space program finds a happy medium then in its vanilla incarnation. Pretty enough to feel therapeutic while you play, like looking at an aquarium or a fire pit, but suitably simplified so that your brain doesn't pour out of your ears when you try to comprehend it. Or at least it didn't until mods like Astronomer's visual pack turned up in all that 8K finery. Just look at that. This game originally came out in its earliest form in 2011, and here it is making real life look like Bubble Bobble. There are many ways to explore the universe with a mouse and keyboard, but surely none quite as satisfying as in a Frankenstein's monster of HRSI tiles you cobble together at ground level with scant regard for astrophysics, aeronautics, or indeed aesthetics. Well, that's our list, but as always, it's just a conversation starter because there are many, many other games out there aging like Hollywood A-listers who sleep in cryogenic chambers. So let's hear about your favorite mods down below. If you can get past the fact we didn't mention GTA 5 in this video, you know where the subscribe button is, so consider giving it a tap and turn on notifications while you're at it so you know when we upload something new. We're going to go and inspect our crow's feet in the mirror now, but we'll see you in the next one.